There are 4 bars of soap in your bathroom. In 1955, a farm wife made a year's supply from wood ashes and hog fat. Not a substitute for soap, not a poor man's version of it. Actual soap, the same chemistry that runs in every soapworks in the world today, made in a yard out of 2 things that would otherwise have been thrown away. The ashes came out of the stove. The fat came off a hog that was going to be butchered anyway. Her entire cost was firewood she had already burned and an afternoon she had already planned for. Now go pick up the bar in your shower and turn it over. Read the small print on the back. I'm going to tell you in a minute what most of you are going to find written there, and it is not the word soap. That is not a trick of language. That is a legal distinction, and it is the reason your skin feels tight when you get out of the shower, and the reason there is a bottle of lotion sitting on the counter next to the sink to fix it. I grew up in a house where soap came out of a crock, not a wrapper. It was pale, a little soft. It did not float. It did not smell like anything in particular, and it never once came in a box with a picture on it. My grandmother made it in the fall after butchering the same week every year, and one batch did the laundry, the floors, the dishes, and all 9 of us, from October straight through to the next October. I want to be careful and honest with you today, because this is a subject where the internet will get you hurt. There is a part of what she did that I am going to tell you not to copy, and I am going to explain exactly why. And it is not the reason you think. By the end of this, you will know what soap actually is, which almost nobody does. You will know the single most valuable thing in a bar of soap and why it is taken out of yours before it reaches you and sold back to you in a different bottle at a higher price. You will know the one word on a label that tells you whether you are holding the real thing, and you will know which part of the old method is worth having back and which part killed people. Stay with me because the second part is where the money is buried. Here is the first thing, and it is going to bother some of you. The bar in your shower is probably not soap. I do not mean that as an insult, and I do not mean it loosely. Soap is a specific substance with a specific definition. If a bar does not meet that definition, it is not permitted to be called soap on the label, and so it is called something else. Beauty bar, cleansing bar, body bar, moisturizing bar, skin bar, go and look. If the front of that wrapper says anything other than the plain word soap, you are holding a synthetic detergent bar, and the reason it is called something else is that legally it cannot be called soap. That is not a scandal on its own. Detergent bars work. They lather well in hard water, which real soap struggles with, and they are usually milder in pH than an old farm bar was, but it does mean something worth sitting with. The oldest manufactured product in human history has been quietly replaced in most American bathrooms by something that is not it, and the replacement is cheaper to produce and easier to trademark. So what is the real thing? Soap is not an ingredient. Soap is a reaction. Take a fat, any fat, lard, tallow, olive oil, coconut oil, add a strong alkali, and the fat splits apart. The reaction is called saponification, and it has exactly 2 products. One of them is soap, which is the fatty acid bonded to the alkali. The other one is glycerin. That is the whole thing. Fat plus a strong base gives you soap and glycerin. There is no third ingredient. There is no secret. Every bar of true soap that has ever existed came out of that one reaction, and my grandmother ran it in a kettle in the yard with no thermometer and no scale. And here is a detail almost everybody gets wrong about farm soap, including people who romanticize it. Ash soap does not make hard bars. The alkali you leach out of wood ashes is potassium-based, and potassium soap is soft. It comes out as a thick amber jelly, somewhere between pudding and petroleum jelly, and it stays that way. It never sets into a cake you can wrap. That is why it lived in a crock with a wooden paddle stuck in it and got scooped out by the spoonful into a wash pail. Hard bars, the kind you hold in your hand, need a sodium alkali instead, which came in a can from the store once that was available and cheap. So when you picture neat white bars stacked on a shelf, that is the later version, after canned lye arrived. The older one, made entirely out of the farm with nothing bought, was a soft soap in a pot. It cleaned everything, and it looked like nothing you would recognize. Where did she get the alkali? That is the ash. Every farm had an ash hopper, a wooden trough that collected hardwood ashes from the stove all winter. In spring, she poured rainwater slowly through the ashes, and what dripped out the bottom was potash lye. It was strong enough to burn, and it was the missing half of the reaction produced for free by fires she had lit anyway to keep the house warm. Ash, fat, fire, water. That was the whole supply list, and 3 of the 4 were things she already had. And she had a season for it. Soap was made after butchering because that is when the fat came in, and after a winter of fires because that is when the ash hopper was full. The two halves of the reaction arrived on the calendar together. That was not planning, that was how a farm ran, and the soap fell out of the middle of it. I went around my own house and counted because it is easy to talk about this and harder to look at it. 11 things a person would call soap. 2 bars in the shower, 1 at the kitchen sink, 3 pump bottles, a body wash, a face wash, a hand wash by the back door, and 2 travel bars still in a hotel bag. 11. 2 said the word soap, 2 out of 11. Everything else said bar or wash or cleanser, and every pump bottle was water first on the ingredient list. Then I did something simpler. I put a real soap, the kind that still has its glycerin, at the kitchen sink for a whole winter, which is when hands crack around here, and left the detergent bar in the bathroom. By February, the difference was not subtle, and it had nothing to do with smell or lather. The bottle of hand lotion that used to live by that sink had not moved in weeks. I had not decided to stop using it, I had stopped reaching for it. That is the whole argument, and it cost me nothing to run. If this is already making you want to go read the back of that bar, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell while you are there. I put out one of these every week, the old practical knowledge that worked for 100 years and got quietly replaced with something you have to buy. The bell is the only way these reach you, then stay right here because the next part is the one nobody tells you. Here is the second part. Remember, I said the reaction makes 2 things, soap and glycerin. Glycerin is the good part. Glycerin is a humectant, which means it pulls moisture out of the air and holds it against your skin. It is the reason her soap left you feeling soft instead of stripped. And here is the thing about a farm kettle. She had no way to separate the two and no reason to want to. The glycerin stayed exactly where the reaction put it, folded into every bar she poured. Her soap cleaned you and conditioned you in the same motion because the conditioner was born in the same pot as the cleaner. Understand that this is not an additive. Nobody put it in. It is produced by the same reaction that produced the soap in the same instant out of the same fat, whether anybody wants it or not. Glycerin is not something you add to soap. It is something you have to take out. Now go and look at the bottle of lotion on your bathroom counter and read its ingredients. I will wait. Glycerin is in there, usually near the top of the list. In large-scale soap manufacturing, the glycerin is separated out of the batch. It is a valuable commodity in its own right. It goes into cosmetics, into lotions, into pharmaceuticals, into food manufacturing, into industrial products. It is worth real money on its own, and the soap sells perfectly well without it. So the most useful thing in the bar is removed from the bar, sold into another market, and then a portion of it is put into a second product that you buy to repair the effect of the first product. That is not a conspiracy. It is what happens when one process makes 2 things and one of them is worth more than the other. But understand what it means for you standing in that shower. Your skin feels tight afterward and you reach for the lotion, and you have been trained to think of those as 2 separate needs. It was one thing once, it was one pot. Now let me tell you about the rest of the money. A bar of store soap was a dime or so in the middle of the 1950s, and a farm family with children went through dozens of bars in a year. That was real money in a house that counted it. Making her own was not a hobby, and it was not nostalgia. It was a line item she deleted. Look at what has happened to that line item since. There is a bar for your face and a different bar for your body. There is a pump bottle for your hands and another for the kitchen. There is a body wash, which is a detergent in water in a plastic bottle sold by volume, and the volume is mostly water. There is the lotion to fix the dryness. There is a separate lotion for hands and another for feet. Nothing about the human body changed. The shelf just got longer. I'm not telling you there is a room somewhere where men decide these things. I do not believe in that. What I believe is simpler and worse. It is a quiet agreement among everybody who profits to never mention that the conditioner used to come free in the cleaner. Nobody has to coordinate. Nobody has to lie. They only have to stay quiet about the second product, and they have stayed quiet for 70 years. If that landed, hit like and subscribe, and ring that bell. Now here's the third part, and it is the one that decides whether soap is any good. The third part is the fat. Fat is not just fat. What you put in the kettle decides what comes out of it. Tallow, which is rendered beef fat, makes a hard bar that holds its shape and lasts in the dish. Lard, which is rendered pork fat, makes a gentler bar with a soft, creamy lather and almost no bubbles. Coconut oil makes big lather and cleans hard, and too much of it will strip your skin raw. Olive oil makes the mildest bar there is and takes months to cure hard enough to use. She was not choosing between these. She used what the farm gave her, which was hog fat, and hog fat happens to make a decent, mild, everyday bar. The leaf lard from around the kidneys made the best of it. The trimmings and scraps made the laundry batch, And this is the part I want you to hold on to because it is the actual lesson. The whole thing was built out of the waste stream. Ashes from a fire lit for heat, fat from an animal butchered for meat. She was not gathering ingredients. She was catching things on their way to being thrown out. Now the warnings, and I want you to hear this part more than any other part of this video. Lye is dangerous, not inconvenient, dangerous. It is caustic, it burns skin on contact, and a splash in the eye can blind a person permanently. If you ever get wet, lye in your hands, your skin will feel strangely slippery, and I want you to understand what that slipperiness is. That is the same reaction running on you. The fat in your skin is turning to soap. That is the sensation people describe as soft and pleasant, and it is actually the beginning of a chemical burn. Second, and this is the one I will not let go of, do not make lye from ashes and use it. The historical method is worth knowing about. It is not worth copying, and the reason is precision. There is no way to know how strong ash lye is. It varies with the wood, with how hot it burned, with how long it sat, with how much water you poured through it. The old test was to float an egg in it and judge by how much shell showed above the surface. That is not a measurement, that is an estimate with a person's eyesight standing in for a scale. Too weak, and the batch never turns, and you have a greasy mess. Too strong, and you have made a caustic bar that will burn the skin off a child. That is precisely why old lye soap has the reputation it has. Some of it genuinely was harsh, and that harshness was not toughness or tradition. It was an unmeasured alkali. If you ever do make soap, it is done with measured sodium hydroxide from a supplier, a digital scale, and a calculator that tells you how much your specific fat requires, with a deliberate excess of fat left over, so no free lye can remain. Goggles, gloves, long sleeves, good ventilation. Never an aluminum pot because lye and aluminum react and give off hydrogen gas. And always the lye into the water, never the water into the lye because the other way around can boil up out of the container into your face. Now, two things people say when I bring this up. The first is that this proves the old ways were dangerous and the modern product is better. Half of that is fair. The measuring genuinely is better now, and I have just told you so. The other half is not. Nothing about a scale and a pair of goggles required anybody to take the glycerin out. Those are two separate decisions, and only one of them was made for your safety. The second thing people say is that real soap does not lather properly. That is your water, not your soap. True soap reacts with the minerals in hard water and leaves the film people call soap scum, and it lathers poorly until those minerals are dealt with. That is a real limitation, and it is the honest reason detergent bars took over. It is a water problem with a water solution, not a reason the chemistry was wrong. So here is what to actually do, and none of it involves a kettle. Turn over every bar in your house tonight and read the front of the wrapper. Sort them into two piles, the ones that say soap and the ones that say bar. That takes 4 minutes, and it will tell you more about your bathroom than anything I can say. When you replace them, look for real soap that lists its fats and says the glycerin is retained. Saponified tallow, lard, olive oil, coconut oil. Any small maker who kept the glycerin will say so on the label, because it is the thing they are proud of. Give it 2 weeks before you judge it and use less than you think. Real soap with its glycerin still in it does not squeak, and most people read that as not clean. It is not a film. It is the part they usually take out. Then watch what happens to your lotion. If you find you are reaching for it less, you have your answer and you did not have to trust me for it. And if you want the ash back in your life without the danger, take cooled hardwood ash from a fireplace, mix a spoonful with a little water into a paste, and use it with a damp cloth on the sooty glass of a wood stove door or the bottom of a scorched pot. It is mildly alkaline and finely abrasive, and it takes off carbon better than anything sold for the purpose. Wear gloves, keep it off your face, and rinse well afterward. If you have gotten this far with me, hit like, subscribe, and turn that bell on. Nobody sponsors a video that tells you to buy less. The only thing keeping this in front of people is you. One more thing, because it is the part I actually think about. There was a coffee can on the back of the stove in that kitchen, my whole childhood, and every bit of fat that came off anything went into it. Bacon grease, roast drippings, the skimmings off a pot of broth. When it filled, it was rendered clean and went to the soap crock or the frying pan. I never once saw fat go into a bin in that house. She was not making soap out of nothing. She was making it out of everything she had refused to throw away, one spoonful at a time. I asked her once why she kept at it after the store in town had a whole shelf of wrapped bars. She thought about it and said she was not going to pay a company in Cincinnati for something that came off her own hogs You did not forget this. Nobody taught you, and then you forgot. It was taken from you one rep bar at a time until you stood in an aisle with 60 products in front of you, half of them not even soap, and never